everyone! This week, my husband and I built a canning shelf. I'm just beginning my canning journey, but we don't have any shelves in the kitchen that are strong enough to hold that kind of weight. The pantry shelves probably could, but they're currently full of all sorts of other things. We started by putting together the basic structure of the shelves. We built 5 of them and attached each of them to the 2x4 legs. We added additional supports in between each shelf for added strength. Next, we attached plywood shelves, making cutouts on the sides for the legs and supports. We placed the shelf in its permanent position and used Tapcon screws to attach it to the brick so there is no risk of the shelf tipping forward, because that would be really sad. Lastly, we added some more plywood in the front to create a lip so that the cans cannot slide off the shelves. I will be sealing the wood and painting the front pieces with chalkboard paint so I can label the shelves as I stock them, but change the labels easily if I need to later. Unfortunately, we didn't get the sealing and painting done this week, but I will have that in a future video. I plan to have extra boxes and lighter things on the top shelf, as well as my seed boxes up there. The middle shelves with the empty jars will house most of the homemade canned food, which will be tomato products like pizza, spaghetti sauce, diced tomatoes, plain tomato sauce, things like potatoes, stocks or broths, a few jams and jellies, canned vegetables like green beans, corn. I have stars in my eyes looking at this canning shelf. The bottom shelf here will mostly be for dry goods, half-gallon jars with dried herbs and spices, things like that. I plan to have 5-gallon buckets with gamma lids underneath the shelf for dry storage, like dry beans, rice, flour. This shelf is incredibly sturdy. I am so excited to stock it with lots of home preserved goods. It's going to be so much fun. I also wasn't able to make a new meal this week, unfortunately, but I did make one of our favorite tried and true comfort meals called Zesty Italian chicken. To make it, we need 3 chicken breasts, 2 cans of cream of chicken soup, 2 packs of Zesty Italian seasoning, and 1 8-ounce block of cream cheese. This can be made in a slow cooker or in a Dutch oven. I made sure to spray the Dutch oven so the chicken didn't stick, and added the chicken breast to the pot. Next, added the 2 cans of cream of chicken soup. I know, it looks disgusting, but it is wonderful when it's finished. Next comes the 2 seasoning packets, and then give it a good stir to combine everything. You can also add the soup and seasoning before the chicken if you want. It really doesn't change the final product. As long as the chicken's covered with the soup, it's perfectly fine. Last is the block of cream cheese. Mine is frozen because I forgot to get it out of the freezer, but this will be cooking for a while, so it doesn't need to be thawed. You can also add more seasonings if you like, such as black pepper, garlic, oregano, whatever. Put this in the oven at 400 for about an hour, and then start checking the chicken to see if it can be shredded. It usually takes our oven about an hour, but your oven might be different. If you choose a slow cooker, you'll want to cook this on low for 6 hours or on high for 4. When the meat can be shredded, it's done. We also add a bunch of broccoli to this about 20 minutes before it's done, usually frozen, but this time we had fresh broccoli from the garden. After an hour, take the chicken out, shred it, stir it back into the pot. The chicken should be fall apart tender by this point. If the sauce looks too thick, or if you want to thin it out a bit, you can add some chicken broth or even just water. You can serve this over rice, pasta, maybe even something like a baked potato, but our favorite way to eat this is over rice. This is one of our favorite comfort meals. You can also add more toppings like cheese, fresh parsley, even some fresh basil if you like. But this already has a lot of flavor, so we normally just eat it without any extras, which is saying something because we are a cheese-loving household. If you decide to try this, please let me know what you think. I also have a garden update and tour, or at least a tour of the backyard garden anyway. Here's the grapevine I planted last week and it is still alive. I also planted blackberries in another bed like the grapes, and you can see the little artichoke and scented geranium pots on the sides. Here is me having a disagreement with the hose. Here is my onion bed, and these are not doing well at all. They're pretty spindly and they're really not growing. I may not get any onions this year, but it's also my first time trying to grow onions, and my seed starting area earlier this year was just not ideal. We recently created a new area, so hopefully that'll be better in the future. You can also see my little flower pots that are also not doing well and have since all died. I've never grown flowers before either, and this isn't a great start, but I will plant more and we'll keep trying. These buckets here are russet potatoes, and I'm hoping that this bucket rack will help keep these safer from grubs. I tried to grow some potatoes in a grow bag this past fall, but I made the mistake of letting it sit on the ground and grubs got into it. So I ended up with a bag of grubs and no potatoes. Oops. I'm hoping this will work out better. Here is me arguing with the hose again. Here is the grapevine again in its position right between the two big beds. We have some broccoli left over from the winter garden. My fall winter garden, the first garden I have ever planted, did not produce much at all. And the only things that really grew were some bok choy, which has made some wonderful lo mein by the way, and now this little bit of broccoli. Beside the broccoli is watermelon, which actually germinated and is still alive. I will be just over the moon if I can grow a watermelon. Here is my little carrot bed, which seems to be doing pretty well so far. A lot of the seeds I planted have germinated and they seem to be growing pretty nicely. And here is the blackberry again sitting in between the beds on the opposite side. This is my squash bed, and it is looking pretty good so far, I think. I've got pumpkins, two different kinds, Long Island cheese, and I'll figure out the variety of the other kind. I think it's like sugar or something. I have spaghetti squash next, acorn squash, gray zucchini right in the middle there, yellow squash, and those are looking great, butternut squash, and then these little baby butternut squashes, and they've all germinated, except for that one zucchini spot in the middle. You can see that blank. And so far they look pretty good. I'm really hoping for squash harvest this year. There are a bunch of leaves in this bed though, as you can see, from the tree that overhangs a section of the yard, and we'll be working on pruning that back later in the season. But for now, I've just been using the leaves sort of like a mulch to try and help keep the soil from drying out too fast. This is southern Arizona, where hot and dry is the normal run of things, so battling the heat and the dry weather is a continuing struggle. And if my backyard tree wants to help me do that, I will take it. I water once daily at the moment, since it's been pretty mild, but I will be watering twice daily when the heat really kicks in later on this year. We do plan to set up a watering system, but that will likely be later in the year before I plant for the fall. So for now, I will be hand watering to keep everything happy and growing. Hope, hope, hope. Here is the artichoke and the scented geranium before I move them back beside the blackberry later this week. The artichoke, that will eventually end up in a very large pot in our front courtyard. I'll show you the front courtyard as we get that all set up as well. We'll be doing a paver project up there and then adding pots and smaller movable beds. This is the little asparagus bed, and we only had about half of what I planted come up, so I'm planning on eventually planting more asparagus seeds where the first round didn't germinate. I just planted these earlier this year, so we aren't expecting anything to harvest until next year. Next, we have the blueberry bed, or the blueberry and mushroom bed at the moment. They're still pretty little, but all three blueberry plants are still alive, which I consider a win. So far, I have not gotten any blueberries from these little plants, but I have hope that as they grow, I will be able to get lots of wonderful berries from these. Lastly, we do have some tomato and pepper seedlings and my one precious tomatillo seedling that we are hardening off, and we're going to plant them in the empty bed. I killed a lot of seedlings this year, but these are still alive and they seem to be doing passably, so I'm going to plant them out and we're going to try. I will keep posting more garden updates as the season goes on and show every harvest I can get. I hope you come along for the journey. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I will see you next week. Bye!